All right. I guess we're getting started. Christ in capital, love God, love neighbor, build something. Yeah, let's go. Zach, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a while. It's been a really, really long time, actually. I think you were on episode 7.
Up till 4. Did I make it to 7? You booted me after that.
I didn't boot you. You rejected me a couple times, so I was like, he doesn't want to do this anymore. So anyways, yeah, I called you back on to talk about, what are we going to talk about? Generosity, charity, caring for the poor. But first, how was the football game? Baseball game last night. How was the baseball game?
They're not doing too good this season, and they won.
They did?
Yeah, they won. 1-0.
Wow. And their record's like terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like 8-14 or something.
8-14. Charlotte Knights. Or maybe I shouldn't have said that on here. But yeah. 8-14. So now it's 9-14?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was 8-14. It could be.
So you're like their good luck charm, essentially.
Okay. I just need to keep going.
Maybe that's how this the podcast is. Like you're the good luck charm. You'll come back now, and then we're just gonna make millions of bucks.
And then you'll just retire. You don't retire from your job and do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
As long as you're here, because otherwise it doesn't work. I'm kidding. Yeah. So we're going to talk about charity, generosity today. Before we did that, I wanted to do something a little bit fun. I need you to give me a business idea or an invention or something that you've seen recently that you think is really cool, or that you want someone to invent or to start business-wise or idea-wise.
I have no idea. You asked me this last night, and I was like, I have no idea.
Nothing. So what about fishing? Anything fishing related?
That someone's created?
Or that you would like to see created? I'll tell you one that I think should be invented. I think, so for listeners, we were at the beach last week and we were doing some fishing, and the most frustrating part to me was not knowing whether or not you still have bait on your hook while it's out in the water. Right? That's frustrating because you're like, do I reel it in? Do I leave it out there? Do I be patient, or am I wasting this time because there's nothing on the end of my hook?
Yeah.
So it'd be really cool if you had an app or something that could tell you whether or not the bait is still on your hook, so you don't have to keep reeling it in.
Like a camera.
Could they do that on a fishing line?
Why not?
I don't know.
Now that you said that, I have thought before what would be really cool. I have no idea how you would do it, but if they could make a weight that you could change, like through an app or something. So like, say I'm just pond fishing and I want to get it out really far. I could put it real heavy, cast it out there, and then when it's in the water, turn the weight down so it's less weight. So I can.
You want to make something that can regulate gravity.
Yeah.
An anti-gravity weight, fishing hook weight. Okay.
It'll happen.
Okay. I mean, you do that.
I saw a thing the other day.
It's gonna have to be. You're gonna have to email Elon Musk and see if he can figure.
I saw a thing. It said it was a picture of the Wright brothers and then the man on the moon.
I saw that.
And it said these two pictures are 60 years apart.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
perspective, I guess.
It says in 20 years.
I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait 60 years for that.
Well, we're already at, what, 40? I don't know.
For a fishing hook? I'm talking about the fishing hooks.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Although it seems like something that like Tony Stark or Elon Musk would have to create. Mine is Speechify. You're getting kind of I don't know, critical of me for my Speechify. You don't know what Speechify is?
I have no idea.
Okay, so Speechify is an app where you can take the books that you have, physical books, just scan the pages, and it'll read it to you. So that you, instead of having to buy an audiobook, which I like having the physical copy, but I like being able to do stuff while I'm listening to it. So I can just scan in my pages, listen to it. It takes a couple minutes, but after that, like if you, like for instance, a chapter, I tried scanning a chapter of this book 40 minutes. So it takes me a couple minutes to scan the pages in, and I can just listen to it.
So it's already a thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I told you it was an idea, a business idea, or an invention, or something that was created, or one that.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure they've already made that, but
yeah, it's called.
I remember like back in middle school, they had the pen you could write over stuff, and then it'll read back what you.
Oh yeah. On those little, what is it called? The smart boards.
No.
Oh, what are you talking about?
It was like a little pen, and if there was something written down, you could trace it, and then we'll read it back to you.
Really?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
I mean, I guess they kind of have that now, but in kindergarten, would you say kindergarten?
No, middle school.
Oh, which is how long ago? You're like what? You're gonna be 26 tomorrow. 26 tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it was
back in like 2000. Well, when Grandma passed away.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
2007.
And they had that technology back then.
Like 2005, 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty
cool. I didn't know that. Generosity and charity. All right. Okay. So I wanted to talk about this today because I was reading. Well, I'm doing one of the Bible reading plans, and we're reading through John, and there was a passage in there where Jesus says something that at first kind of contradicts a free market libertarian conservative idea. Just on the surface, it kind of sounds like it contradicts that. To give the context, so libertarians and conservatives, we like to kind of put a spotlight on the liberty aspect of economics and markets. Like we want markets and the free enterprise to run the marketplace, right? We want freedom and liberty to be the thing that sets prices, it regulates the economy, all of that. That's we want that, right? And that requires freedom for individuals to use their stuff the way that they want to pursue their own goals in service of others and all of that. That's what should help eliminate poverty, eliminate need in the society, and it does by and large. Free markets do create wealth for society. But I was reading this passage, and and other passages as well, which we'll get into, and it seems like, I mean, we know from as being Christians reading scriptures that generosity and charity is more than just a nice to have kind of thing. It's more than just a, oh look, let's do the freedom thing, but if you can, just give to charity a little bit, if you can, that kind of thing. But I think God's word is more, it puts charity and generosity more at the forefront. And it says, these are requirements, these are obligations to you. The image of God says something like, you have dignity and value and worth, and you have the right to not be infringed upon, right? Not to not be oppressed, all of that. That's the image of God. But we also have this concept of, and Nathan told me about this, was the imitatio day. It's hard to pronounce it without sounding kind of weird, but it's the imitation of God rather than the image of God. It's the imitation of God. And we're required to imitate him in the world. And that requires generosity. So let me just read this passage real quick. It's John chapter 12, 3-8. And it says, and it's the famous passage everyone knows, Mary washes Jesus's feet. But it says, Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard. I don't know what nard is. And anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, leave her alone so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you will always have with you, but you do not always have me. What's the first thing that pops out to you on that? Are you any thoughts about that passage? No.
Any thoughts?
Yeah. What do you think about that passage?
I just have a question.
Okay.
And it seems kind of silly, probably, but with this being about generosity, kind of tied into like being nice or being angry. You think when he said that, you think he was like, hey, you always have the money, or you always have the poor, but you don't always have me, or it was like, shut up, you always have the poor, but you don't have me.
It's it's hard to read intonation in the text. Like, was he saying, hey, shut up, like, just be quiet,
Yeah.
sit down, don't say anything? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if we really can get a lot of that detail from these. But anyways, I think the point that I wanted, there was kind of two things I wanted to point out here. One was just the idea of who he's speaking to, right? And the other one was there's an Old Testament reference in here. And so the Old Testament reference is Deuteronomy 15, I think. Yeah, Deuteronomy 15. You want to read it?
Sure. 15 what?
Just read 7 to 11.
7 to 11. I feel like a Hebrew or what are they called? Hebrew Israelite. You ever seen them?
No.
When they're like the main guy's up there, and then he has the little guy behind him reading every time he tells him to.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that.
It says
we don't have the fancy clothes on.
Yeah. If among you one of your brothers should become poor in any of your towns within your land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart or shut your hand against your poor brother, but you shall open your hand to him and lend him sufficient for his need, whatever it may be. Take care lest there be an unworthy thought in your heart, and you say, the 7th year, the year of the release is near, and your eye look grudgingly on your poor brother, and you give him nothing, and he cry to the Lord against you, and you be guilty of sin. You shall give to him freely, and your heart shall not be grudging when you give to him, because for this the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in all that you undertake. For there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, and to the poor in your land.
All right. So what's this passage about? Hey, what is this chapter about? I think the chapter is about like Sabbath laws, right? Debt forgiveness, caring for the poor, Jubilee laws, like releasing debts, releasing captives. I think whenever you go back up into the first portion of the chapter, so verses 1 through 6, it basically says some of the same things, but it's like a promise. And it says, God's promise is that if you care for the poor, if you do these things, if you obey my commandments, release debts on the 7th year, release captives the 7th year, care for the poor, you have an open heart towards the poor, and you're bearing their burdens with them, then it has this passage in there, this section in there that says, there will not be poor in your land. There will be no poor in your land if you do these things, right? So there's this promise that if you obey God, if you listen to his voice, if you follow his commandments, there will be no poor, right? Which to us post-millennialists, that sounds good, right? Eventually, there will be no poor, right? But then you come down to this passage, and it repeats some of the same things. If you have the poor in your land, keep an open heart towards them, obey the 7th year, release laws, don't be begrudging to your neighbor if you're in like the 6th year and you think to yourself, well, next year the debts are going to be released, so I'm not going to lend to my neighbor. No, he says, don't do that. Give to him freely, have an open heart towards him. But then in this section is what Jesus quotes in John, and it says, for there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore, I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy and to the poor in your land. So it's interesting that Jesus quotes this passage to Judas, right? So he's quoting this passage about caring for the poor to Judas, who just accused Jesus of not caring for the poor, right? So Judas comes in and he says, hey, look, we could have used that perfume to sell, get a whole bunch of money, and give to the poor. And Jesus quotes this passage to him and says, the poor will always be with you, right? So it's almost like an indictment. It's like the book, The Maker versus the Takers, Jerry Bowyer points this out. He says, Jesus quoting this passage is an indictment to Judas because he's basically saying, why is there poor in the land? Why is there poor here? Why are there poor people here? You know from Old Testament, which I'm quoting right now, that if you had obeyed God's rules, if you had listened to him, there wouldn't be poor in the land. And so it's like Jesus, in answering him, is saying, you haven't been obeying the rules, right? I mean, the passage that we just read in John says, it gives the reasons why Judas was doing that. It says he said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. So it's like Jesus knows what he's doing. Here, let me quote this. Jerry says, he also makes the point that where they're at in this passage is Bethany, and Bethany means house of the poor. Okay. And it says, Judas, who is stealing from the poor, complains about Jesus, who voluntarily left a prosperous occupation to live as an indigent, for allegedly not caring about the poor. And Judas, who is about to conspire with the temple elite, issues this complaint from a slum that would not even exist had the elite obeyed God, right? So Jesus is like, it's like this really cryptic condemnation of Judas, which I think is awesome. Yeah.
So it's probably very polite when he said this, but the undertones of what he said were like,
yeah,
got you.
Yeah. Like if you sit here and think about what I just said,
Yeah.
Later on you'll be like, zing. Yeah, I just think it's a really awesome. I think it's really cool that every time Jesus has a condemnation of someone, or he, rebukes someone, he's always referring back to the Old Testament. He's always like using the Old Testament as his basis for his condemnation, or his.
What's he gonna use? The New Testament.
No, but I mean, like, it's not just this arbitrary like rule that was just made up. It's like it's something that was previously written, right? He's following the laws. He's making his condemnation based on Old Testament commands, the law of Moses, the ones that Judas and the high priest and the Pharisees were claiming that they were abiding by. But Jesus is always throwing it back in their face, saying, "You're not doing it." And he shows that here, I think. One of the other things I thought was really interesting. So, have you read this book? Oh, for everyone who's watching. Da da da. Man, versus takers. You know that's from? Never mind. Okay. So what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought because
you didn't do enough jumping jacks.
No. So The Maker versus the Takers, the book that Jerry Bowyer wrote, he talks about how all the details in the New Testament are intentional, right? They're not just in there just because, right? And so the minor details, we should look at them and see, why are they in there? Why did they decide to put those things in there? Judas's name is important. Okay, Judas means, so Iscariot means man of carry off. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but Kerioth was a town in Judea. Okay, so it means man of Judea, man of Kerioth. And the beginning part of Jerry's book, he talks about some of the archaeology and the distinctions between Galilee, which is up north, and Judea, which is down south. Galilee was known, the industry that it was known for was productive makers, right? construction, tradesmen, craftsmen. There's a lot of trade routes that go through there. Artists, all of that kind of stuff. Makers, people who are providing value to society. On the other hand, Judea is more, the industry that it's known for is more extractive in nature. So you've got religious elite, politicians. So it's essentially their Washington, D.C. So Galilee would be like the Silicon Valley tech. Judea would be DC, extractive in nature. That's the idea of the industries that are make up most of Judea. And so Jerry makes the case that including Judas's name, man of Judea, he's acting as a stand-in for a class of people who are of that type, right? The extractors, the people who are exploitative, right? In the same way that you would look at the woman at the well, the Samaritan at the well. Why does he say the Samaritan woman, right? Because this woman is a stand-in for a class of people. So now when they tell the story in the Gospels, it's like Jesus accepts Samaritans, right? It opens the door to Samaritans. Same thing with like Matthew and Zacchaeus, tax collectors and sinners, right? The Pharisees convict Jesus or accuse him of dining and hanging out with tax collectors and sinners because he hangs out with Matthew and Zacchaeus, right? So giving their kind of the details of their occupation or just their context is important, right? And so looking at Judas Iscariot, man of Judea, he's kind of acting as a stand-in for these people who are exploitative, the religious elite, the high priests and the Pharisees and Sadducees, the ones that Jesus was conspiring with, or that Judas was conspiring with to betray Jesus. And so when he says this to Judas, he says, "The poor will always be with you, because you, man of Judea, the exploiters, you are not obeying God's word as stated in Deuteronomy 15. If you care for the poor, if you obey the Sabbath laws, if you are open-handed towards your poor neighbor, if you care for them, then there will be no poor in your land. But as it is right now, even though you're claiming that you want to care for the poor, because that's what Judas was doing, the poor will always be with you." Which I think that when I read that in Jerry's book, I was like, that's awesome. That there's this really veiled, couched condemnation of exploiters, people who exploit, who don't care for the poor, who don't even care to obey the Sabbath laws, right? Another passage another piece in the book was about debt forgiveness. And there's this really cool archaeological finding that they found where one of the rabbis, prior to Jesus coming on the scene, had made up this legal document where rich people could sell their debts to the court system. And it was called prosbul, this legal document. It's called prosbul. And they would sell it to the court system and claim that the Sabbath rules do not apply anymore to those because they're not owned by the Israel, right? So effectively leaving the people who owed those debts in slavery, in debt, because they claimed that they could bypass the Sabbath laws. So it's just another example of them, the ruling elite, the religious elite, circumventing God's rules as they were doing the whole time, and the reason Jesus came to condemn them.
So how would you say that works out today? Because I could see someone hearing it and thinking, like, socialism, like the government, the people who hold the money need to give the money back.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, no, we need to be the ones that are loving our neighbor and giving.
Right. Those commands are for us. Right. I should have said that right out front, that we're not, this is going to sound like an encouragement or an advocacy for big government, and that's not the case. Um, so these rules and these laws are there for us, right? But there are other rules and laws as well that are not contradictory to this that we also have to obey as well. And that's where we get the free markets, the non-exploitative nature. But government itself is an exploitative endeavor. Yeah. It's an extracting.
It's kind of like these are the things that should be done. So the Lord saying, this is what should be done, but you don't do it. So it's done this way. So the government is supposed to be the one, or the people who hold the money, they should forgive debts after 7 years. They should do that. But y'all don't do that. That's why you will always have poor with you. So now the singular people need to be the ones.
Yeah.
Are the ones that do that.
And I don't know, would you consider yourself a theonomist?
Yeah.
Somewhat. Yeah. I guess
as far as I understand it, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested as to how Jubilee laws or Sabbath laws, every 7th year releasing debts, would apply to a current setting. I think that would take a lot of.
Well, it can't work right now because it can't work inside of a single nation. It has to be the whole world that agrees to that. Because if our government does that for us, what debts are they being relieved of? I mean, they have to be relieved of their debts too.
Right. Yeah, but when you get into international debt and national debt, that whole concept is just the most confusing concept in the world. Yeah, and I get it. It would be hard to slowly graduate it in. You'd have to just cut the cord and just everyone take their losses and start over.
Yeah.
I don't know how it worked. Part of me, my gut feeling is that we should somehow try to incorporate Sabbath laws, debt forgiveness laws somehow. I don't know how. We can talk about that in a later episode, like student loan debt. That's one of the worst situations our nation has, is student loan debt. Yeah. We need to talk.
Well, I don't know what college. I don't know what exactly it means, but there's a college around here that someone just donated $13 million or $13 billion to, and the college has no more debt.
The whole college?
Yeah, I don't know if that means student debt as well, or if that just means. But someone donated a large sum of money, and the college has no more debt.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Who was it?
Can I say?
No, not the school. The person that donated.
Oh, it didn't say. Well, I didn't read the article. It's all headline.
You are the reason why we have issues. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So, yes, I think people can get the sense from this that, hey, look, we should care for the poor. Therefore, let the government give to people. First of all, there are other rules in the Old Testament that prevent people from stealing from one person to give to another. You're not allowed to do that. That's what a government does. On the other hand, there's a utilitarian aspect where it's it doesn't work. We're giving $300 a week to people right now to not work.
Yeah.
We're giving to the poor. And we should, that in and of itself gives you reason for pause as to this applying to the government, right? We're going through a really hard time right now. We cannot care for the poor because we're caring for the poor.
Yeah.
We're just in a bad situation. So it requires thoughtfulness, in my opinion, thoughtfulness in how we care for the poor. And if you think about how we're required to image God as his image bearers, we're required to imitate him as well. And imitation is not us giving money to the government so they can provide for the poor. It's us inwardly, hearts being changed, taking a new disposition towards the poor and caring for them. That's how we image God. That's how we reflect him in the world. We don't reflect him by voting for the guy who's going to take from other people to give to the poor. But anyways, I think the point of this whole passage, the John passage, quoting the Deuteronomy passage, is that Jesus is very committed to the Torah. He's very committed to caring for the poor. He thinks it's top priority. It comes with the promise that if it's obeyed, there will not be poor in the land. So that's a good encouragement. We as his image bearers need to care for the poor. And if we do that, and if the world comes to Christ and obeys his law, his word, his commands, we can get rid of poverty, right? And I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, and I'm not going to say that we go and take conquest and force conversion on people. That's not how it works. It's a bottom-up thing. People's hearts are changed. The world is changed. People come to know God. The glory of the Lord covers the earth as the water covers the sea. That kind of thing. That world-transforming conversion is what's going to eliminate poverty, not sophisticated government programs.
Yeah.
So,
have you seen the whole ordeal that's going on with AOC's grandmother?
I think so.
I think it's kind of made as a joke, but Matt Walsh started a GoFundMe because her home needs to be repaired or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's raised from conservative people, it's raised $100,000 right now. And I saw Ben Shapiro posted it today and was like, let's donate to her grandmother. And it's like, she's completely against that. She's like, the government needs to help my family.
Oh, yeah.
But you've got these people coming together.
And it's conservatives.
Yeah.
AOC's going to be upset about it. Yeah. I did see that. She posted that thing. It was like, my abuela can't even get proper, housing or whatever. We need to give to her.
Yeah.
And he's like, why can't you help her out?
Yeah. She probably makes enough money to help her herself. But.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. I know she does. She probably at least makes 6 figures. Yeah. So the whole point of this episode was to encourage people, build charity into your budget, right? Tithing is a good thing, right? Give to your church, help your church, care for the poor, help them with whatever mission programs they have going on to care for the poor. Even as a family, just bake in a little bit for charity, even outside of tithing, if you can, giving time to the soup kitchen or giving stuff away to your Goodwill or something like that. Just a giving heart needs to be the driver of individuals, right? In a society, in an economy. And I don't think that an economy can properly function the way that God intends for it to function without generosity and charity being a key aspect, a higher aspect than libertarians or secular conservatives tend to make it, right? They tend to make it, if you can, just do it. It would be a nice to have. But I think God's word makes it more of a priority and a prerequisite for God blessing the nation, blessing our economic endeavors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what do you think? Me and Andrea had this talk a lot. Taking, for example, last night going to the ball game, whenever you get done, ordering something, they have the little tip thing there on the little screen, do you want a tip? She never tips on things like that. And if we're out to eat and someone's serving us, then yeah. But if it's something like that, and she's like, they're not doing it, they're just taking my order. But me, and my generous heart, I'm like, they might make more than me, but they probably make less than me. And
Who?
These people who are typing in stuff behind the counter. The people who are taking your order.
Okay.
Like, they probably make less than me. And a tip, I had to fix myself.
Okay.
A tip helps them out. So I'm gonna tip them. What do you do in that situation? Do you tip or do you not?
I get it. That, I mean, when you're out eating dinner and someone's serving you and they're waiting on you, they're providing something. They're providing a service to you. Behind one of those things, to me, it sounds more like a something that the guy who's making the business decision just said, hey, let's just throw that out there and see if we can get a little bit more money in the door. Without, like, I don't know how much are they doing for you? I guess that's the question. So I get.
I mean, without them, I can't get my food.
I mean, you make that call, I guess. It's a wisdom thing, in my opinion. Just whatever you do, make sure you're doing it with a clear conscience. I, for one, would say, if the person was nice to me, if they gave me a good experience, sure. If they weren't, then I can justify it. You're not providing a service to me.
Well, that's when being generous and charitable comes in.
Yeah.
Even though you were rude to me, here's a little bit extra.
Yeah, but there's a difference between generosity and charity and throwing money out the window.
Yeah, but I mean, say it's like Starbucks and your drink's only $2. They're rude to you. $4. They're rude to you. Well, it's only going to be a few cents that you're losing.
You're saying you would give to them?
I'm not saying I would or I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just saying, you're saying there's a difference between being generous and throwing away money. What's a few cents?
Yeah, it's your call. If you think that giving to that person is charitable or is generous, go ahead.
See, I don't even know where that money went. I don't know if it goes to that person working that register or if it all goes in one pile.
See, that's the thing. Like, if you were making the business decisions, if I was back at that counter and I was making the decisions on how the transaction process works, yeah, 100%, I'm just going to throw in an option for giving to charity, right?
Yeah.
Or giving a tip. I'm just going to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Not because I think I'm providing anything for it, but just because what if someone wants to?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to throw out every possible way of getting the money, earning a profit. So it's like, okay, are you just doing this just because you're trying to see if I'll take the bait, or are you doing this because, you think that your servers are actually providing a service to me?
Yeah.
If they are, give generously, give abundantly. I think God's word and his law requires wisdom. It requires us to cultivate wisdom in our interactions with people, and sometimes it's not as clear cut how we apply these things, but it requires wisdom. It requires listening to God's voice. It requires listening to the word of God, or his spirit, and making decisions based on that with a clean conscience, a clean heart.
Can't live.
Huh?
It's a show.
What?
Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose. I think that's what Friday Night Lights.
I have no idea what you're talking about. All right. Any last words?
Elephant.
Okay. Gotcha. Enough said.
That was the last word.
Okay. All right. Go like and subscribe to the podcast. Click notification bells. Share it with a friend. Leave a comment, rate and review. That really helps us climb the charts. And the podcast is actually really growing. Getting a lot more listeners, a lot more subscribers to the podcast. trying to get more on YouTube. So go listen to us on YouTube. Do it right now. Go do it. Press the button. Maybe I should push one of those. Like press on YouTube. Where is it? It's over.
Which one? Like, subscribe.
Yeah.
Hit the notification bell.
Hit this notification
Like
bell.
down,
Actually, it'll
like,
probably be over
subscribe.
here. It'll probably be over here. Click the notification bell. Yeah, leave a comment, rate and review us. Tell us if you like Zac on the show. If you don't, he won't be on again. All right. Love God, love neighbor, build something.